Welcome, everybody, to the LETTERTALKED podcast. I'm your host and local film enthusiast, Andy Roberts, and with me is my guest, Kris Stull. Kris, are you ready for today's episode?
Oh, so ready, so excited.
This is one of his, if not the most favorite movie you've ever seen and of all time. So we're going to be diving into today Indiana Jones, or more commonly known as the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Welcome back, everybody, to the LETTERTALKED podcast. Just as a review, since this is only our third episode, maybe you missed last week's episode, we're going to be rolling through a little bit like this today. We're going to go with some opening remarks with what's happening in the news and film these days. We're going to go over what we've been watching this week on Letterboxd, some of our Letterboxd entries, and then we're going to be going over our feature presentation with the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The first thing I want to start us off with, in theaters, and I talked about them last week, are How to Train Your Dragon and Materialists. Both of them have been kind of dominating at the box office from what I've seen, doing really well. Some people are saying How to Train Your Dragon is the remake that Lilo and Stitch should have been for live action, which is, having seen Lilo and Stitch and not How to Train Your Dragon yet, seems a little bit like the right call, but at the same time, I don't have the official verdict on that one. And Materialists, though it's a hit to some people, is kind of divisive. I've been seeing some divisive takes on that. Have you seen much about Materialists so far?
I've seen a little bit of talk about it. Haven't seen it personally myself. I'm a little off my game on going to the theaters lately.
Same.
And I'm also not a huge Dakota Johnson fan.
That's also valid. There's only one, I mentioned this last week, but I think there's only one movie of Dakota Johnson's that's a consummate banger for me, and that's Bad Times at the El Royale.
Okay.
That's a great movie.
I also have one Dakota Johnson movie that I actually really like, and it's Cha Cha Real Smooth. So
I haven't seen that one yet. So both of us are on the same level. Yeah, we gotta do a little crossover there and make you watch Bad Times and me watch Cha Cha Real Smooth. How to Train Your Dragon is actually a higher Letterboxd rating than it was last week with pre-screenings. It's a 4.0 right now on Letterboxd, while Materialist has gone from like a 3.8 to a 3.3 right now, which is crazy. It's gone way down as it's been released to general audiences, which is kind of remarkable. But for this week, we're recording this on Saturday, so yesterday was technically the big premiere for 28 Years Later and Elio. 28 Years Later is debuting to favorable reviews. Generally speaking, it's the third installment, so generally speaking, between days and weeks. If you like zombie movies, then I think you'll like it. I haven't seen any of these movies yet, but I've heard that it's pretty much kind of the same thing, that a lot of the same things. What I have heard is that it doesn't quite live up to the trailer. It's got one of the scariest trailers of the year, I would say. And at least the first trailer that released. And I've heard it's not quite as scary as the trailer, that the trailer's maybe a little better than the movie. And there's a movie, I can't remember what it is. There's a movie recently that kind of had that sort of buzz about it too. Do you remember what that would have been? I can't remember.
Coming to mind.
I'll have to, if I think about it, I'll bring that one back up. So 28 Years Later is coming out. It's got a great cast. It's got some good things going on there. But something else that I'm a little surprised about, but also not really, is how Elio, an original script, original story from Pixar, is not doing too much. It's not making as big of a splash as you would think for a Pixar release. I know there's been a lot of...
I know what you mean.
There's been a lot of people going to theaters between Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon, and those are still in theaters, so I get that some families for the summer are like, hey, we just went to a couple movies, maybe we don't go check out this Elio movie, we'll see if it comes to streaming, which I think is partly Disney's fault, because all their stuff have been coming to Disney Plus so quickly. But Elio, it's got a 3.6 on Letterboxd, which is favorable, especially for a kids movie on Letterboxd, but it's not been doing much on the at the box office.
Almost makes it seem like people actually do want sequels and reboots,
which is frustrating because from the perspective of some hardcore movie fans, big film buffs, cinephiles, whatever you want to call us, or yourself, maybe you attribute one of those characteristics to yourself. I don't want to keep seeing Lilo and Stitch remakes. I don't want to keep seeing Inside Out 2, 3, 4. I love those movies, but at the same time, let's get some original IPs in there. I want to see some original stories. Give me more Soul. Give me more Elio, perhaps. I haven't seen it, but I want more original stories coming from these big studios. That's something that would probably help bring some people back to the movies, I would think. But obviously, from marketing perspective, there's advantages, and it's advantageous to have sequels. So it's a little frustrating. I think partly it could be the marketing. I didn't really know I appreciate a trailer not giving away too much of the script, not giving away too much of the story, spoilers, etc. But I don't think that the trailers have been very grabbing. You don't have to give a lot away to make it a really like attention grabbing trailer, but it's been a little disappointing to me. Any thoughts on Elio? Are you excited about Elio?
I'm gonna be 10,000% honest with you. I have no opinion about Elio.
That's fine
because I have not seen a trailer for it. But what I have noticed about Elio is that it's the same animation style that they've been using since Luca.
That's true. Well, it's
phenomenal movie.
I believe it's the same director.
That's interesting. Luca. Did not know that either. But I would like to see them expand their horizons on animation styles.
I agree. I liked Luca, but I wasn't crazy about Luca. In fact, I don't know if I finished Luca, which is maybe a sin to some people. Even though I think I was just really sleepy and was like, I need to go back and finish this another time. It's either the same producer or maybe director as same director as Turning Red I'm seeing.
And then I thought that one was fine.
And that one's pretty good. But maybe it's the same producer, but they're a lot of the same creatives that made Luca, which is why it has a similar feel to it. If you guys haven't seen Elio, it's essentially like a movie about a kid that wants to be abducted by aliens and he ends up going to space. And that's an interesting enough kind of base for a movie, but it's just not been enough apparently to bring people to the box office, which is frustrating in a time where the movie theaters need some juice. So any other thoughts about some upcoming releases?
I mean, we're less than a month out from my most anticipated film of the year.
That's true.
That's Superman. And there's not even words to describe how excited I am.
Superman's going to be really
finally
great.
Another good Superman movie.
Yeah. We watched last week. We watched the original Superman. And there were parts about it that I really liked. Check out my Letterboxd if you want to see some more thoughts on that one. I was a little more scathing than maybe some people would want me to be. But I did like it overall. I liked a lot of it after the first hour. The first hour I thought could have been cut entirely almost. But regardless, it was a fun time and I can see why it's so special to so many people. But excited about that new one. Next month we also have Fantastic Four, Jurassic World Rebirth, which I did see a trailer for just on YouTube while I was setting things up today. And it's got a much scarier tone, it looks like, than a lot of the stuff.
It looks like they're trying to bring
to Jurassic Park.
I was going to say the exact same thing. And if you had even told me that a month ago, then I would be even excited for a new Jurassic World movie after the last one.
Oh my gosh.
I would not have believed you.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable that they're able to do that. And it's got Scarlett Johansson as the lead, and it's got Jonathan Bailey,
Mahershala
Ali.
Great cast, great director. And I don't know if this is a hot take, but I do not think Gareth Edwards has ever made a bad movie.
I'd have to look at his filmography.
He did Rogue One. He did Godzilla 2014. He did The Creator, which a lot of people slept on. They said the story was boring, but the visuals were great. I think the story was very good, and the visuals were phenomenal.
I am unversed in Gareth Edwards. I've really only seen Rogue One on here. I haven't even seen 2014's Godzilla. And personally, and I'll mention this here in a moment, but I've been getting a bit of a Godzilla renaissance for myself as somebody who slept on it for a long time.
All those old classics.
So I'm excited about to talk about that here in a moment, but I haven't seen that one. I've got to check out some more Gareth Edwards.
Okay.
That's exciting, though. I'm glad that those are coming out soon. And now I do want to... Next segment is the Letterboxd Roundup. If you guys don't know, there is a boutique label, which what even is a boutique label? When you collect Blu-rays, when you collect DVDs, when you collect 4K movies and all these things, which I'm a big proponent of physical media, you've got these companies that will make releases of those movies that are in the most premium format, that are in the highest definition, that have the most extras, that just given a really cool artwork on the front, all these cool things, maybe a box set. It doubles as a collectible and as a movie. And those are boutique labels. My favorite boutique label at the moment is Criterion, and they do a partnership with Barnes & Noble, where Barnes & Noble has all of the Criterion movies on sale in the month of July. This is not an ad, but I've been very excited for it. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, man, there's some movies that I've been on the fence about, whether I want to get them from Criterion or not. I've heard great things. So I've done what I've made as a challenge for myself this week, a Criterion sale test run. So I've watched 5 movies, one a day.
Okay.
Actually, one of them I doubled up, but basically one a day this week, where I watched a ton of Criterion movies that I'm thinking about getting in the sale. The first of those was Godzilla 1954, the very first Godzilla, which I thought was spectacular. It was inspired by Godzilla -1. That's a movie that every time I've seen it twice now, and I'm going to see it again when I get a copy of it coming in the mail. That's in the mail. That's I got a cool version of it that I'll probably be making a video on TikTok. But that inspired my like invigoration of interest for Godzilla. And then this old one, I was like, oh, they've always had it. They've always had the sauce for this. It's really, really, really good. Have you seen the original?
I haven't seen the original. I have seen some of the old ones.
Yeah.
Caught them on TV, but don't think I've seen the first one.
The first one is very thematically adjacent with Godzilla -1. You can tell a lot of it is of the Godzilla -1 is inspired by the original. Obviously, that's the one that was originally deemed as a analogy or a metaphor for the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings and things like that, and it takes on a life of its own beyond the movie. The subtext is just as strong as the script itself, and so I really, really like that. The miniatures are fantastic. That's half the fun, is recognizing that this shot's a miniature and this shot isn't. And then so I'm really in favor of getting that in the Criterion pickup. But I also watched Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which was a 10-year later, like the first one that was kind of more of a kiddish turn in the series, as opposed to being a more serious one like the 54 version. And it's definitely a kid's movie, but it was a fun time. It was a little silly. It kind of like doesn't character assassinate Godzilla himself, but he's definitely like mitigated in his powers and his like menacing nature to everybody. So that was a little silly, but it was fun to watch. This one was recommended by the Ryan Coogler Criterion Closet video, where he says, this movie, oh my gosh, this movie. And that's Thief, 1981. Gosh, this is a really great noir movie. Literally flooded with rain throughout the movie. He Ryan Coogler in his video talks about how it kind of established the idea of wet downs, which is where you run a truck with water through the street, so the street's kind of like flooded with water, and has those reflections off the lights that are on the street, and so that in the shot it's perfectly framed and has that really noir like neo-noir setting and all those neon like lights reflecting back up from the bottom of the shot, and it's really, really cool. You can see how that was so influential for so many movies, and it's just a really great thriller. I liked it a lot. One that I liked but didn't love, with a very tight screenplay and sharp dialogue, was Double Indemnity from 1944. Great chemistry between Fred MacMurray and Barbara Steinweg, who are really great in the movie. It's black and white. It's got some, again, really sharp dialogue. I was a little bit disappointed in some of the pacing and a little bit disappointed in the direction that the story took. I gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd, which is great, but it's one of the lower ones I watched this week. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but they're really great. I want to now take a moment. This one I'll park on for a second. Malcolm X by Spike Lee, 1992. My gosh, this movie floored me. I watched this on Juneteenth. It was a Juneteenth watch that I was like, I've been waiting to see this. It's been on my shelf, the DVD version. It's like in a double pack with 42, the Jackie Robinson movie. I'm like, I gotta see this to see if I want to upgrade to that 4K Criterion release, get all the extras. It has a like a documentary on there. I'm like, I really want to see that documentary. This floored me, guys. It was amazing. Denzel's performance is out of this world. He is one of the two things that's actually commended from the Oscars in that movie, which is a crime. He is nominated, didn't even win, but is nominated for Best Actor as Malcolm X, which is really great that he got some recognition. But this movie should have been Best Picture, should have been cinematography, director for Spike Lee. I mean, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I wish that the world gave this more of a better shot back in the 90s, but I don't think they're ready. This movie is before its time.
Say the same thing for Do the Right Thing.
Say the same thing for one of my top 4 movies that's on my shelf right there, Do the Right Thing. It's another Spike Lee movie that blows my mind. Oh my gosh, that's from 89, so it's a little bit even before Malcolm X. But I think that showed why Spike Lee could handle a biopic about somebody that's this magnetic, this big of a figure in history. Speaking of that, I wish that the world would watch this movie in it's a rated R movie, so it's definitely got some mature themes, but this should be shown in high schools across America and history classes. This should be in the Smithsonian. This should be in like every like historical like artifact collection that's like, it belongs in a museum. While we're talking about Indiana Jones today, it belongs in a museum. It's a fantastic movie, and I was blown away by it. Spike Lee's one of my favorite directors, even though I've only seen a couple of his movies so far, but so far he's 2 for 2 for 5-star ratings for me. But gosh, you're gonna have to see it when I get the Criterion release, because that's one of my picks. You're gonna have to come over and watch it. It's great. And the last one to go on my little spiel was Paris, Texas, by in 1984 by Wim Wenders. It's Wim Wenders is how it's spelled. And once on a video, I said Wim Wenders, and somebody flamed me in the comments. It's Wim Wenders. They told me. So don't get that wrong, bro. Somebody's gonna flame you on the internet.
Yeah. Hate getting flamed on the internet.
Right. Big deal. I was a little bit let down with this one, but not by the cinematography. The cinematography is amazing. The blocking is great. There's great techniques being used by the crew in this one. I forget the cinematographer, but he did a fantastic job. It's a very quiet movie. It's about someone with a guy with amnesia as he's trying to find his family again, and he slowly starts to regain his memory back. It's a beautiful movie, but it lost me a little bit. It was a little slow, which I don't have a problem with slow movies, but it was a little slow without the writing for the characters to keep me alongside of it. Yeah. Wim Wenders also directed one of my new favorite movies that I've seen this year, which is Perfect Days. Same director. This is also a very quiet movie, very unassuming, very personal and intimate, just like Paris, Texas. But I think the lead character is so much better written than Travis in Paris, Texas, who's the lead in that movie, and he still has some great moments. There's still some really stunning camera work, but that was my opinion on that one, which is a little bit of a letdown. Chris, what did you watch on Letterboxd this week? I just went on about 5 whole movies that I watched. What did you watch this week that comes to mind?
Well, last weekend, I'm several years late, 10 years late to the show, 5 years late to the filmed version, but I finally sat down and watched the Broadway musical Hamilton, the pro shot on Disney Plus.
Come on.
And I was blown away. Greatest thing I've ever seen. Amazing. And while I was on the Lin-Manuel Miranda kick, I went ahead and I rewatched In the Heights, which slept on. Not a lot of people. I mean, people like it. People love it. A lot of people say it didn't translate well to the screen. I don't care. I liked it. It's same director that did Wicked, which I hated, but he did a very good job bringing In the Heights to the screen.
I'm not a Wicked hater. Just to put that on there, I'm not a Wicked hater. I liked Wicked. It wasn't my favorite of the year or anything, but I liked it. I have not seen the Disney Plus version of Hamilton. Haven't seen In the Heights yet, even though it's on my shelf back there. But I did get to go see the traveling crew who did Hamilton, and it was very good. I saw that a couple years ago with my wife. That was really great. Oh my gosh, guys. I know that again, I was really late too, that I saw it a couple years ago for the first time, but there's a reason that everybody likes this movie so much, or this stage musical, and the movie version that you got to see. So that's cool.
I'm a couple months late, but I finally got around to seeing Tim Robinson's movie Friendship, which also very polarizing film. Tim Robinson's comedy isn't for everyone, but
it's a funny movie. It's hilarious.
I adored this movie.
Yeah,
it's my second favorite movie of the year so far.
Ooh, that's high praise. To Sinners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second only to Sinners. I'd say I haven't seen a lot of this year's movie, but I have. There's been a lot of stinkers so far this year.
There have.
Speaking of which, I watched the new movie Fight or Flight starring Josh Hartnett, where he plays an assassin on an airplane with a bunch of other assassins.
Yeah.
It's basically Bullet Train, but not good.
Yeah. I haven't gotten around to that one because of that understanding that it looks like Bullet Train, but less magnetizing.
Yeah. It was very boring. It was very dull. The fight scenes weren't good. I didn't like it. 2.5 stars out of 5.
Okay.
However, I did watch a movie that's been on my radar for a little while. It's been sitting on my Prime Video list for a little while, and I was finally like, okay, I'm going to watch this movie. I'm going to lock in. And that's Copycat from 1995, starring Sigourney Weaver and Holly Hunter.
I'm going to peep your...
And
I missed this one.
I really liked it. It's about a psychologist who's being stalked by a serial killer who's recreating the murders of famous serial killers.
Oh.
And it's very, very good. I locked in. I liked it a lot.
Great cast.
And it's one of those movies that you're watching it and then you find out that there's a current meme blowing up happening in the movie where what's the guy? What's his name? Dermot Mulroney randomly has a quarter pounder with cheese in his pocket.
I did see that. And after you showed me that, I didn't realize it was from this movie. I'm piecing it together now. I saw that on my For You page. A meme with that in it. There's a quarter pounder with cheese for some reason in his pocket. That's hilarious.
But goodness gracious, 1995
Stacked cast, guys. I gotta check this one out.
Holly Hunter, please hit me up.
Holly Hunter is in it. Sigourney Weaver, Dermot Mulroney, Harry Connick Jr., Will Patton. I mean, there's a lot of big names.
The Harry Connick Jr. appearance in this movie was very, very shocking because he's only been in a couple movies because he's mainly known for his music.
Right.
So seeing him play a weirdo freak in this movie was a very interesting experience, to say the least. But that's pretty much what I watched this week. That's the highlights.
That's big. Those are some great films, and a great way to transition us into our feature presentation of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Let's go.
Plot synopsis coming to you from Letterboxd. When Dr. Indiana Jones, the tweed-suited professor who just happens to be a celebrated archaeologist, I like the way they worded that, is hired by the government to locate the legendary Ark of the Covenant, he finds himself up against the entire Nazi regime. Not wrong.
Hate when that happens.
It's never fun. Steven Spielberg directed this. It's one of his best, if not his best, in my opinion. He's obviously got a very storied career. He's got a ton of movies that are fantastic. It's his personal favorite
of the Indiana Jones series.
And it should be for a reason. Yeah. I respect that. He's got Jurassic Park, he's got Schindler's List, he's got Jaws, he's got Catch Me If You Can, he's got E.T., Ready Player One, all the Indiana Jones, The Terminal, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Minority Report, West Side Story. I mean, the guy's made movies and movies and movies and movies for years. And this is one of his best. That was one of his first in 81.
Yeah, one of his earliest. Masterpiece.
Stacked cast, largely because of people that went on to do things fantastic after this.
Yeah.
Most of these people were not big names when this movie came out. Harrison Ford, who you know from a ton of movies. We'll be talking about those movies a little bit more extensively in a moment, but obviously he's Han Solo in Star Wars. He is Indiana Jones. He's in Blade Runner and all these other movies. He's a legend. Karen Allen, who's great in a lot of other things. He's got a lot of supporting roles after this. John Rhys-Davies, Paul Freeman, Alfred Molina, Wolf Kahler. A lot of movies represented by these awesome actors and actresses that have gone on to do amazing things. Obviously, to start off with Indy, this spawned a franchise that has gone on for 40 years.
Yeah, 40
years.
Yeah, 40 years.
The first three came out within, 10 years of each other, 15 years of each other?
Something like that.
And then there was the 2008 Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the 2022?
24. No?
23.
2023.
2023. What's the title? I'm going to have to... Oh, hold on. Give me a moment. Dude, I can't believe I can't remember. That's so embarrassing. Well, that shows you I did like it. Dial of Destiny. Gosh, wow, that's embarrassing for me.
Good title, but I did like it better.
Dumb title, but I did like it better than Crystal Skull. I agree. I think it's actually a lot of fun.
Also the only one not directed by Steven Spielberg.
Which is true, but thankfully the guy who took it over...
Yeah.
What's his name?
Same guy who did Logan.
Same guy who did Logan. That's totally right. Let me pull that one up now. Let me give his James Mangold.
Oh my gosh.
Same guy that did Logan, A Complete Unknown, Ford versus Ferrari, Girl Interrupted, Wolverine 2, Walk the Line. Yeah, he's done his thing. 310 to Yuma. James Mangold was a good person to put that in the hands for, and I think it's generally slept on. Honestly, generally slept on. I wouldn't say it's better than any of the original trilogy.
No, the original trilogy, clear.
It's very good.
I will take time travel over interdimensional aliens any day of the week.
I 100% agree, and it really fits. A little off topic with Raiders, but it fits with the theme of a lot of the continuous themes throughout the series, and it really feels at home in the universe of slight fantasy, largely adventure, and action movie of the historical framework that happens within the Indiana Jones franchise. Obviously, this spawned that franchise. It also spawned a fantastic career by Harrison Ford, and we'll be talking about Harrison Ford here in a moment as well. But up until 2000, this is an interesting thing that I looked up because I was curious. I'm like, well, Harrison Ford's been a legend for a long time. He had a few years in there where he kind of slowed down a little bit. Probably around 2000 is when he started to slow down a little bit of his film output. This is how big of a big deal Harrison Ford is, that from any movies ever up until 2000, so from 1900, when the movies started to really come on the scene, early 1900s, right? Up until 2000, the turn of the century, he was 9th all time for an actor for selling the most movie tickets at the box office.
Quite impressive.
And he didn't start his film career until the late 70s or mid to late 70s. At least as a generally lead actor, he wasn't until the late 70s, and yet he's been 9th all time up until 2000. So this spawned a huge career for one of the best actors, one of my favorite actors in history. And we'll talk about him here more in a moment. A couple things to riddle off for Raiders of the Lost Ark with its recognition. Obviously, we love this movie. That's why we're covering it here today. But also,
the Academy loved
this one. And they don't always love every great movie, but they did give this one its flowers. It won a few, but was nominated for a ton of Oscars. Best Picture nominee, Best Director nominee, Best Cinematography nominee, one for Best Art Direction and Set Direction, one for Best Sound, which we noted a few times being very good during this movie. We just watched it, by the way, before we got onto the episode in front of the table, behind the table here today. We just watched it over there, and it was a great experience. It's always fun. Best Film Editing winner. Great editing. Best Effects and Visual Effects winner. Oh my gosh, when you see the face melting, you understand.
Gave me nightmares.
You understand. Spoilers, by the way. We'll note that the spoilers are happening when you enter.
It's 45 years old.
It's 45 years old, right?
You had time to
give you the context, but someone's face melts, and this is a spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the movie, you should maybe stop watching here. We're done with some of the history. We're starting to get into the spoiler talk. And then it was also nominated for Best Music Original Score. How does this not win? If you talk about 1981 movies with the best score, I don't even know who won that year. Maybe you can look that up for me. But I'm shocked that John Williams didn't win for this one. He's been nominated time and time again. He's made Jaws theme. He's made the Star Wars theme. He's done so many iconic themes. But Indiana Jones is probably the most iconic of all of those, if not for maybe Star Wars.
Definitely top 3.
Definitely top 3.
I'd say Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, of course.
Superman.
Oh my gosh. Superman. I mean, John Williams is oh my gosh. He's Hollywood royalty for a reason. He's one of my favorite composers of all time. And then it also, as a little throw in there, as if they didn't get enough recognition that night, they gave people working on the movie special Lifetime Achievement Awards for sound effect editing.
Okay.
So these people they knew what they were doing. Steven Spielberg compiled a really great crew to lead this movie. If you don't know the ethos of the start of this movie, here's a little trivia for you. And I'll read this as it comes from the trivia on IMDb. Traditionally, when one of his films is about to open, best friend of Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, goes on vacation to get away from all the hoopla. In Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, when it was just about to open, which came out in 77, this is 81, he went to Hawaii when it was about to open because he didn't want to join at the premiere. So he went and he joined with his best friend, Steven Spielberg, and when the grosses or the box office gross for Lucas's film came in and it was clear it was going to be a hit, Lucas relaxed and was able to discuss some other topics with his friend. And it was at this point that Spielberg confessed he had always wanted to direct a James Bond film.
Can't blame him.
There's a lot of people that want to. And
throw
actually, currently right now, throw you on that list. Currently, there's a little bit of discourse. Who's going to take over the new James Bond franchise? Because it's got thrown out. Who was the director that just hopped off? Do you remember?
Oh, there were a bunch of different ones.
It's kind of in the mix right now. They're trying to figure that out.
Now that they're switching up Mr. Bond.
They're switching up Mr. Bond a little bit. But Spielberg confessed he always wanted to direct a James Bond film, which George Lucas replied he had a much better idea. An adventure movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark. So on vacation, to get away from all the hoopla with A New Hope, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg birthed this idea for Raiders of the Lost Ark. And their conversation happened while the two were making a sandcastle on the beaches of Hawaii.
Just guys being dudes.
That's kind of an intimate moment for Indiana Jones to get birthed in their minds here. And after their trip, they got together and developed the script with Lawrence Kasdan. So it's a really cool moment of originating this franchise. Cool trivia moment that I don't know if everybody knew. Did you know that beforehand? I think you mentioned that
I did know that one.
Wanted to flex that one, and I unfortunately already knew that one. So I apologize.
Lawrence Kasdan also has quite the filmography of writing credits under his belt.
List them off.
He wrote the very popular Wyatt Earp.
Okay.
He has writing credits on the Lego Star Wars games, which means that he worked on the original trilogy.
That's true, right?
He's got, like I said, he's got all those credits on those original trilogy. He wrote the Bodyguard.
Okay.
The famous movie with Whitney Houston and
Kevin Costner.
That's
correct.
Right. Yep. And of course, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of Hollywood royalty started with their hands in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it's really cool to see how that's happened. I know we talked about some of the other Indiana Jones movies. What is your ranking? You had to come up with a ranking of all 5 movies.
Oh, brother. So it's complicated.
Okay, let me hear it.
Actually, it's not. It's really not that complicated. Obviously, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's my favorite movie of all time. So it's number 1. However, I really like the third movie.
Yeah. Last Crusade.
Last Crusade.
That's my favorite.
Phenomenal film. Agreed by a lot of people that it's the best one in the entire franchise.
It's my opinion too,
it's debatable. It's a great movie. So we'll go 1.5. 1.5.
1A, 1B.
And then up until the 2000s, it was widely regarded that Temple of Doom was the worst movie in the franchise, which I was never on that boat. I always loved Temple of Doom.
Yeah. I love Temple of Doom.
We've also been getting a lot of reviews.
It was third place.
Yeah, but of course it's third place. And then there's a little bit of a gap. And then we have Dial of Destiny, which I love that Harrison Ford is still down to do these Indiana Jones movies at 200 years old.
Yeah.
But also he's 200 years old. Just play somebody's grandpa.
He's not doing the same stunts anymore. He doesn't have the same lively action and all those things that he had in the old movies.
Dial of Destiny would go in at number 4. There were a couple qualms with the movie. I won't really get into them right now, but one of them definitely being him being old and the wonky CGI with the de-aging in the opening scene.
It was a little wonky, but it could have been worse.
And then dead last is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which don't like it.
I think we have the same ranking. Flip the first 2. So I would probably put Last Crusade first. I think it's the most fun, and it's also the funniest, although we'll talk about it. This movie is Raiders of the Lost Ark is underrated with how funny it is. It's a very funny movie. I put Raiders of the Lost Ark at 1B. It used to be a top 4 movie for me. Last Crusade was in my top 4, went bubble and all those things. And then a strong third place would be Temple of Doom.
Okay.
Then you put Dial of Destiny, and then unfortunately Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I have the opinion. I rewatched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull this year. It's not as bad as I remembered it being. I still think it's clearly the worst one, but it's not atrocious. It's not a crime against humanity like some people want to make it out to be. I understand that it's got some goofy parts about it. I think that the third act is its weakest for sure, but the first 2 acts of that movie are electric.
Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf does a really good job. Unfortunately, after this, he doesn't go on to do very, very many big things like the world might have thought he was going to.
Yeah.
The Transformers franchise falls apart a little bit with at least him at the helm and things like that. I understand there's like varied quality with those movies to a lot of people, but
put it nicely,
yeah, to put it nicely. Some people I know really like some of the later and newer stuff. But I think the first 2 acts of that movie are very slept on with how good they are, because the third act just kind of falls on its face.
I will throw this in here though. I did see somebody on twitter.com recently, or X the Everything app, say that that the 5th movie is the worst one in the franchise. And when I went on to say that Dial of Destiny was better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he said, "Get out of here," and blocked me.
So obviously not everybody has the biggest problem with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and maybe their problem is with Dial of Destiny, but we're in the Dial of Destiny camp over here. If we had to choose between the 2, maybe if we had to choose one to go, I would probably take out Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, even though I appreciate.
I can live without Shia LaBeouf.
I can live without it. A lot of the things that they do well in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are done well again in Dial of Destiny, in my opinion. Bring Karen back. All those things happen again. Cool. This is one thing. If you're a returning listener for the Letter Talked podcast, this is one of my favorite segments where we give a top 4 ranking, rating, tier list of a certain category of something in regards to film, in relating to our movie that we're covering for the week. So our Mount Rushmore ranking, if you will. Today, we're going over our Mount Rushmore of Harrison Ford films. Told we were going to talk about him a little bit more. We could go Steven Spielberg for this. We could have gone for adventure movies. We could have gone for Indiana Jones movies, even though we just ranked them. But the Mount Rushmore of Harrison Ford films. I'll go first.
Okay.
Let you send me here. Maybe we'll go back and forth. I haven't done that yet. Let's go back and forth.
I'll give you my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'll start with honorable mentions. I'll list off my honorable mentions.
Okay.
You list off your honorable mentions, and then I'll go we'll go back and forth for what's on our list. Okay. Honorable mentions for me: Blade Runner 2049.
Banger.
Might like it more than the original Blade Runner, but I'll talk about in a minute why it didn't make the list. Raiders of the Lost Ark, again, could very well make the list. He's got so many great movies, and I think it doesn't quite make it because of one that I think is a little better. American Graffiti, he has a small role in that, but that's why I can't put it up there, even though I really like American Graffiti, one of George Lucas's very first movies. And 42, the Jackie Robinson story, which I mentioned earlier today.
Great film.
It's a great film, and he does a really great job in a key role in that, as a kind of a executive fatherly figure kind of role for Harrison. Okay. One of his best old Harrison Ford movies.
Okay, yeah, I can get on board with that. Yeah,
for sure.
All right, I only put one honorable mention, but I will go ahead and throw in his role as Deckard in the Blade Runner movies, and it's like a combo. Do enjoy those movies. I also think I enjoy the reboot sequel a little bit more. But anyway, my actual honorable mention is his role in Firewall, which is I think is a more underrated Harrison Ford film with Paul Bettany. A nice little thriller where his family's life is on the line, which seems to be a trending theme for a lot of Harrison Ford movies. But that's one I watched fairly recently in the last year or so, and it was one that's been around but on my radar, but I never actually got to watch. So that'll be my honorable mention.
I like it. For what makes my Mount Rushmore, I'm going to start with Blade Runner.
Okay.
The original Blade Runner. I think the original Blade Runner reset the landscape for what noir meant, for what neo-noir meant, for what futuristic movies could be. Obviously, you had something like Star Wars that came out a little bit before it as far as what a science fiction movie could be. But it kind of added in a dark, gritty turn into a futuristic movie about the replicants, about AI, about robots and artificial intelligence and all these things and how it could be in a movie. And it reset the landscape. Oh my gosh. And Harrison Ford is fantastic in it. I think I do like Blade Runner 2049 a little bit more as a movie, but
as a Harrison Ford movie,
this is a better Harrison Ford movie.
I can back you up on that.
Yeah. What about your first Mount Rushmore?
I think my first Mount Rushmore on the far left slot is going to be just Indiana Jones as a whole.
Fair.
It's going to be the first slot, Indiana Jones as a whole. I think it said something a lot that this is a role that Harrison Ford just continuously agrees to come back to.
Yeah.
Especially
he loves the character.
There's another certain role that he's extremely famous for that he absolutely hates. Yeah. He doesn't like talking about it. He's like, I'll come back and do the movie as long as you kill me.
Yeah.
But he's kept coming back to Indiana Jones. He loves talking about it. It's pretty clearly one of his favorite roles.
Yeah.
It's my favorite role of his. It made my whole life. Yeah. It was like one of the biggest movies I watched as a kid.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those movies that makes you fall in love with movies as a kid. Yeah. And then as you get older, you recognize how great it really is from a technical standpoint, filmmaking standpoint, and you get to appreciate it on a whole nother level.
Yeah. Inspired so many parts about my life. So that's the
first one.
That's the first slot.
In the first place.
Yeah.
What I like about Mount Rushmore generally is it doesn't put pressure to rank the four.
Right.
But I appreciate you ranking that one as a clear number one. I'm also going to put Last Crusade there to represent the Indiana Jones films. I said it's my favorite, and that's why I'm putting it on here. I think when you add in Sean Connery, you see a side of Indiana Jones' performance that you don't get in the other films. You get to see him where he was a gruff, gritty, slightly womanizing kind of character and have those things, and he gets to kind of put on another hat, so to speak, where he's all of a sudden a son, and you get to see a little bit of an dad, and I'm like, you don't see that in any other Harrison Ford movie, how he's kind of a sheepish at times but still suave and has his moments, and I just really love the dynamic that comes out in that one. And so out of all of the Indiana Jones movies, that's probably my favorite. Great film. I think there's a different side of Harrison Ford as an actor that you get to see in that movie that's not always there.
I'd also give that one a 5 out of 5 just for different reasons than the first one.
Totally agree. Yeah. What's your second?
Second, which I think you might also have on your Mount Rushmore, is The Fugitive.
Word. Yeah. It is on my Mount Rushmore.
Which that one. I basically wore out the VHS on that one as a kid. And more recently, I love a good Chicago movie, and this movie takes place in and around Chicago, and this is one of the better TV shows turned into a movie.
Yes.
And the scene where he's in the storm drain, he's like, I didn't kill my wife, and Tommy Lee Jones says, I don't care. And then he jumps. Bang.
Man, so good. Yeah. In the storm drain. Yeah, I watched this one for the first time, and I'll mention this is on my Mount Rushmore. It was my fourth spot. Not that really counts for the order, but I watched it recently last year for the first time, and I was blown away. I'm like, man, where have I been living? Under a rock, apparently, because I hadn't seen this movie before, although I'd heard about how great it was. So thanks to, I believe, my buddy Mike Hess, who will probably be a guest on a future episode, put me on that movie, and I was like, wow, I was sleeping on this.
I mean, if that one was a blind spot for you, then the sequel is probably a blind spot as well. U.S. Marshals with
total blind spot, yeah.
Oscar winner Robert Downey Jr. and Wesley Snipes.
I didn't know that was a sequel.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a sequel at first either, but I also watched these movies when I was in like middle school.
Makes sense.
So those aren't really things you pick up on.
Yeah.
I was too busy thinking about other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff. My third, or I should say fourth, really, because you kind of touched on The Fugitive. That's also on my list. Maybe this is on your list. Maybe it's not. It is his probably, I wouldn't say most hated role necessarily, although I'm not Harrison Ford to speak to it, but definitely a role that he's been hesitant to come back to. Although I argue that when he was acting in the original trilogy, he loved it.
Yeah.
Star Wars as a whole probably deserves a place on the Mount Rushmore, but I'm picking my favorite of the original trilogy and my favorite of Star Wars, which is The Empire Strikes Back.
I feel like that's a solid.
That's a solid pick. Solid pick, and I think he also gets to take on again. I think it's one of the better movies in the series, and the best movies in the series to my account, because Harrison Ford gets to take on a bigger role in the film.
Yeah.
He's much bigger in the second movie than he is in the first one. Much bigger in the second one than he is in the third one, if we're talking in order of release, right? Much bigger in Empire than he is in either A New Hope or Return of the Jedi. And you get to see a lot more of the suave Harrison Ford that he's kind of built into being his archetype for actor, as he started off being, at least. And you get to understand the swag that he has and he takes to every role because of that role as Han Solo. So it's really cool to see him take flight in that series, even if he was ready to be done and he didn't want to come back in The Force Awakens. I'm glad he did, and he put up with it. And when you watch that movie on screen, you can't tell that he wasn't really about it. He did a really great job. He's probably the best part, one of the best parts about The Force Awakens, in my opinion. So that makes my list as well. And that rounds it out for my top four Harrison Ford films. My Mount Rushmore includes Blade Runner, Last Crusade, Empire Strikes Back, and The Fugitive.
Okay. So I have two more still.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the first of my last two would be movie I really haven't heard talked about a lot, at least in recent years, and that's Air Force One. I don't know if you've seen that one.
It's a blind spot for me, unfortunately.
Got to fill that one up soon.
Yeah.
He's with Gary Oldman in this one, so great two
Gary
head-to-head powerhouse performances. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Where he plays the president of the United States being held hostage. It's Die Hard on an Airplane.
Yeah, Die Hard on an Airplane. A little bit of Brave New World in there. A little bit of, you're like, wait a minute, he's done this before. This is Air Force One. Yeah.
I love that movie. I had it to watch on my PSP when I was in high school. So I watched it on the little tiny couple-inch screen dozens of times.
Yeah.
But I love that movie. I love him in that movie. Iconic line at the end of the movie that I'm not going to spoil, even though the movie's 30 years old. And then my fourth spot is his turn as Jack Ryan, following up Alec Baldwin's performance in Hunt for Red October. Harrison Ford took over for Patriot Games in Clear and Present Danger, where he once again was opposite some really powerful actors. He was Sean Bean in Patriot Games, and Willem Dafoe in Clear and Present Danger. But Willem Dafoe wasn't a villain, but both great films. I personally think Harrison Ford is the best of the 4 or 5 actors who have played Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore.
That's
Indiana Jones,
Mount Rushmore.
Fugitive, Air Force One, Jack Ryan, honorable mention, Firewall.
Good calls.
Yeah.
I love that you were able to stay away from the big IP stuff that was birthed later on, but I think you still capture a lot of those things that Harrison Ford was a part. It's really, really cool. So I like those. Those are some deeper cuts.
Yeah.
And some stuff that I need to fill in a couple of those blind spots for myself. To get into the main takeaways, plot points, my top 5 for the movie. Okay. We've got a couple points here that I want to be able to hit when it comes to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is this one of the greatest, if not the greatest openings all time for a movie? Those first 5 to 10, not 5, maybe 10 minutes?
I'll say 8.
8 minutes.
We'll meet in the middle.
Okay, sure. Let's do that. Those first 8 to 10 minutes, whatever it is, minutes of this movie are jaw-dropping. I mean, this has been parodied and recreated and nodded to so many times in film for the last 50 years that this movie's been out almost. And it's remarkable how the idol replacement with the sand, how running away from the boulder coming behind him as he's running down the hallway, how the reveal from the shadows into the light when he's kind of turns his back and shows his face in the movie for the first time. It's really crazy how iconic this is. And you can say iconic for a movie all you want. Oh my gosh, her performance is iconic. Oh my gosh, the way they do this, the way that's done is iconic. This is iconic to the whole platform and medium of movies as a whole for ages. And it's really astounding how much of a life it's taken on just the first 10 minutes. And if you notice, and you go back and watch some of the other Indiana Jones movies, you talk about The Last Crusade, you talk about Dial of Destiny, the first 10 or so minutes of an Indiana Jones movie are huge. They're a huge part of building that lore and that ethos for him as a character, and it's really cool to see that in this movie.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I would like to add about the boulder scene. He actually did that.
That's true.
Yeah. The boulder was made out of fiberglass, and my boy Harrison Ford actually ran away from it like 10 times.
Yeah.
And his little stumble at the end was real. And Spielberg was like, man, that looks good.
That looks good. We're keeping that in. Yeah, that's good. I love how it starts off with that. I love how Belloc comes in and swipes it from him, and you start to get the idea that, man, he's got his number.
Yeah.
He's not doing any of the hard work. He's not doing not getting his hands dirty.
Yeah.
He's not dodging arrows and poisonous darts and boulders.
Belloc's whole thing is letting other people do the work for him.
Letting it do it for him, and then coming in with a sleight of hand. He's Swiper the Fox, stealing all the good stuff from all the hard work that Indy's put in. So that's really cool. And I love that then drives him to go on a quest, and he gets to come back with Belloc again in the rest of the film. Speaking of the university that he's at for a while. Oh my gosh. How cool. Well, you mentioned a couple things that when he was in the university, you started getting that scene. You're like, man, this is crazy how this was supposed to be an element of Indy's character that they ended up cutting out.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Originally, when they were developing Indiana Jones, sidebar, they originally wanted to name the guy Indiana Smith, but Spielberg was like, that's really boring. Let's spice it up a little bit.
I'm glad they changed it.
Even though his nickname was named after a dog in the films and in real life.
Yeah.
But anyway, they wanted him to, they originally on the same grain as Spielberg wanting to make his own Bond film. Indy was a little more suave and womanizing. And in the scene where Marcus comes to Indy's house, there's technically a woman in the home with him, which hinted at being one of his students. But they decided to cut that out completely. But it's still hinted at a little bit by the way his students look at him, and the student who's written "Love You" on her eyelids and mascara.
And I love that there's still a little bit of his dorky, nerdy character that comes out when he's kind of taken aback by that.
Right.
But it's still, you can see a little bit of the shadows, some of the after effects of that kind of being in the script. And they kept that part in there as taking on a different meaning in that moment.
Right.
Which is really cool. And speaking of potentially problematic relationships that Indy's had. It goes into what ends up being the most wholesome relationship in the entire franchise, which is his relationship with Marion, who is played by Karen Allen, who I've probably interchangeably said Marion and Karen multiple times in this episode, because I think I get them twisted a lot in my head, just because to me they're that's
what she is in your head.
That's who she is. That's who she is. It was always Marion for Indy, and it sets that precedent down here really well. I love how there's a lot of history between their two characters, even beyond their relationship in the movie. Obviously, you can tell there's things back when when we fell in love and you left and all these things. But you also understand, and this is something I didn't pick up on as a kid. So if you haven't seen this movie in a long time, you should go back and check this out. There's some dialogue only lore dropped that's kind of briefly mentioned and then kind of left for a while with Ravenwood.
Yeah. It's not really mentioned in any of the movie. It's in the, I guess you could say, the Indiana Jones extended universe. The books, which are kind of like shakily, gingerly canon.
Yeah.
That Indiana Jones had this like mentor-mentee, father-son relate, because as you know from watching the movies, he doesn't have a great relationship with his father ever since his mother died. This whole shebang.
Right.
But he had this really pretty close relationship with Abner Ravenwood, Marion's father.
Yeah.
And that led into Indy having a kind of problematic, seems like the too woke term to use, but it's definitely a problematic relationship
it's definitely problematic.
with Marion, because she was very young when they first got together. But that's not even the worst part. They originally were going to have her be much younger when they got together in early versions of the script, and Spielberg was like, "What? No.
Yeah, let's not do that."
It was still a very uncomfortable age gap relationship when they originally got together in the extended canon. But it's never really touched on. So casual movie watchers would never know about it.
Yeah. I'm looking it up right now. Indiana Jones, Marion, Agent Raiders. Marion is depicted as being 25 in the movie.
And she was approximately 15
when she met Indiana Jones, who was in his late 20s at the time.
Yeah, he's about 40 years old.
Doesn't explicitly state their ages in the movie, but the supplementary materials and dialogue implied this age gap. So it's definitely a little bit crazy. So we want to acknowledge, look, Marion's still the one for Indy, and as they get older, it's less of a big deal, but definitely a weird start to their relationship at the beginning of the movie. So there's a little lore if you didn't know it. Speaking of, though, it always being Marion, when you get introduced to Marion, she comes in as this gruff, kind of rough around the edges character, but when you open and you get to see her as everybody's leaving into the snow in that really cozy bar, and Indy comes in,
they're so bad
with the door swung open and the lights coming in from outside, and you get to see his shadow on the wall behind her, and she sees that hat, and she turns around and she goes, "Indiana Jones." Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie. That's one of my favorite little few second sequences. And if nothing else, that scene tells us something very interesting about Marion's character.
Yeah,
she has a steel liver.
Yeah, she was downing
that stuff. She's got a steel liver. She was taking all those shots and going bar for bar with that guy. Yeah. So hey, go ahead, Marion. She can hold her own. She's gonna own the bar. You might as well know how to do it. I wouldn't recommend getting drunk at work, but maybe Marion figured out a way to I don't know, handle it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's awesome. I love Marion so much. I want to talk real quick about the filmmaking of this.
Okay.
If you make a blockbuster look this good today,
oh my word,
if you come to any studio and you say we want to make it look like this and have these shots and these close-ups of Indy when he's coming up to the camera, putting his face up here when he's shocked, and you have these crazy cinema choreography in the streets of Cairo, and show Cairo beforehand as being this beautiful place, and then you get to show the streets of it and how there's a lot of things going on that maybe aren't so great, and you get to have all this. You make a blockbuster look this good today, and you might be in trouble. There's no way that it's incredible.
What do you mean you don't want to film your movie against a big blue screen the whole time?
I know. Even George Lucas goes back on his ways later on when he makes the prequels and all these other things. I mean, the practical effects in this movie, I know practical effects are romanticized and a little bit nostalgic to a lot of people,
but in this movie
specifically, it's unquestionable that it's so much better because it has that. There's very few special effects, and actually, if you want to talk about special effects, the special effects in the final scene don't age well. They use quite a few special. They don't age great,
but they're so camp.
They're very campy, so they work really well. Yes. But the practical effects are crazy good in that moment at the same time with the arc happening. If you go all the way back to the end of the movie, when you see the melting faces, when you see
the exploding
heads and some of that's all practical, and that's what ages better.
Projected ghosts that are sucking the souls of all these not so friendly German soldiers.
Yes, that part's a little crazy, and that part definitely spooked me as a kid. This movie is scarier than I think a lot of people want to let on. I think is it rated PG-13?
I think it was rated PG for the time. That was
PG
before
for the time. That's true.
It was like leading into the PG-13.
This is another fact. Temple of Doom is one of the two movies. I think it was Temple of Doom and Gremlins,
something like that.
I think it was Temple of Doom and Gremlins that kind of inspired the creation of a PG-13 rating, because they were both PG, and people thought there's no way
this is way too
violent and scary to go to it as a PG movie. Same thing we're rating like
we can't take our
we can't show
little kids to see this.
This is not the best comp, but it's like we're taking taking to see our kids to see Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and we're going to see Gremlins. Like, that's not Who Framed Roger Rabbit also has some spooky moments, but that's still like that a little bit more is deserving of its PG rating. Right. There's stuff at the time that is not G, is not PG, is not R, but they had to create PG-13 for it. So Indiana Jones is has a lasting legacy in a lot of ways. That's one of them. Can we talk about Indy's fits in this movie?
He had it on.
He had it on in so many scenes. If you want to talk about, by the way, his fit, his iconic hat is a huge deal. Yeah. You can't talk about Indiana Jones without talking about his hat. The way he reaches across, grabs the hat in multiple moments in the franchise. I have to acknowledge and give props to Indy because I watched this movie as a kid. I watched the series as a kid, and I've always since I was little, if I'm on a plane, if I'm on a car, in a car, if I'm on a train or something, which hasn't happened a lot, I'm always, if I'm taking a nap, taking my hat, leaning back and going to sleep like this because of Indy. And it's awesome to see the costume design. Even when he puts on the garb of in Egypt, when he's going and descending down into we decided it was a temple, but also a tomb that they end up finding, where they're discovering what they need to about
the lost city of Tunis,
and stuff like that. It's crazy. So, I mean, he's got it on here. I think
it's really cool to note that they spent a very long time finding the perfect leather jacket for Harrison Ford to wear. That's true. And then it's supposed to look super beat up, so they spent hours throwing it in the dirt, beating it with a baseball bat, which is also how they got the sound of all the punches in this movie, was beating a stack of leather jackets with a baseball bat.
I did not know
And then I'm pretty sure they ran over the jacket a few times with the car to give it that old weathered look.
That's so cool. And you talk about sound design in this movie is great. They use that for the sound design. The Wilhelm scream makes an appearance here.
The classic Wilhelm scream.
It's awesome.
I always like hearing a Wilhelm scream.
It's great. You might know it as the scream from Star Wars. It's probably its most famous appearance because it's in Star Wars a lot. Anytime a stormtrooper's thrown off a ledge, it's whatever it is. So it's really funny. But speaking of fits too, before we leave that, why did we not get Indiana Jones in spectacles more often? I mean, you want to talk about, he probably got it awarded at some point in the 80s or the 90s about the sexiest man on earth. Man, when he puts those on, and I'm like, bro,
this guy's handsome
dude, man. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I'm like, no wonder Harrison Ford's the heartthrob. I feel like people today, as he's in his 70s, are like, Indiana Jones is just still that guy.
Yeah,
he's still that guy. It's really sick. I love the nature of Indiana Jones in this one. Any other thoughts before we kind of start to close out with Indy a little bit?
I'd like to do a little behind the scenes, like little fun facts.
Tell me some trivia to close us out.
So during the iconic, super popular scene near the end of the film, where Indiana Jones fighting the big, bald, shirtless Nazi by the airplane, this
iconic scene, amazing.
This prop airplane, which not based on any real airplane design, completely made up for this movie. That's besides the point. It ran him over.
No,
the plane ran over Harrison Ford's knee during the filming of the movie.
I did not know
because the fight scene was completely improv. They didn't have like a fight coordinator for it.
Really?
So it runs over his knee, but due to the extreme temperatures in Tunisia, the tires were pretty flat.
Yeah.
So it didn't do any like bone or ligament damage to him. So he just wrapped his knee up in ice and just kept going.
Wow.
But also on the subject of the airplane scene, the fighter pilot, the man who was supposed to be playing the pilot got sick, which might come back around for my next fun fact. But the film's producer and iconic producer,
his name, which
Frank Marshall. Sorry, I lost it for a second.
Okay,
he's worked with Michael Crichton, Spielberg on many things. He worked on all of the Jurassic Worlds. He worked on Congo. Phenomenal producer. Iconic. To unfortunately using the word iconic again.
Yeah, that's okay.
He stepped in to be the pilot who was supposed to be flying this plane without knowing that the shoot would take 3 days in the boiling heat of the desert.
Yeah,
which I assume he also ended up sick. But on the subject of everyone getting sick, there was a point in the production of this film where they're in the middle of the desert that a large majority of the cast and crew got sick due to food poisoning, heat, whatnot.
Wow.
But one of the few people who did not get sick was Steven Spielberg because he brought his own food.
Wow.
Which happened to be SpaghettiOs.
His life was saved.
Yeah.
His health spared by SpaghettiOs, the cans of beautiful food.
And on the subject of Steven Spielberg, while he was filming this movie, he was in the process of writing another film, which went on to be extremely popular, maybe even more popular than this one. Do you want to take a guess at what he was writing?
Was it Jurassic Park?
No, that came out. That came out a while later. It was E.T.
Oh,
he was writing E.T. during the production.
It was more successful at the time. I would argue it does not have the same hold on the culture as Raiders of the Lost Ark or Indiana Jones does today. Right. But
and then the last little fun fact I want to drop off here is that in the scene where they open up the Ark, the design of the Ark of the Covenant and the design of the clothes that Belloc is wearing for his traditional Jewish ceremony, that his employers weren't so thrilled about.
Right. For some reason.
Those designs were pulled directly from the Book of Exodus.
Really? Yeah. I did not realize that. I was actually, and I'll admit my shame, I was critiquing how silly that looked.
Yeah.
That's really cool they got that from the Bible. That's really cool. There was one, and I'm forgetting it a little bit. There was one other injury that we mentioned, that you mentioned how he got his knee was ran over. Mm-hmm. When this is one of my favorite scenes, to go backwards a little bit, when he's going through the fights in Cairo, in the streets of Cairo, and obviously it's an iconic, it's using that word again, like you said, but it's a very formative scene in the whole franchise. One of the most popular and well-known scenes is when the guy across from him is doing all of his
and then he just
tricks with his sword, and he just goes and pops him. Well, he doesn't just pop him because that was in the script.
No, it wasn't.
In fact, it wasn't in the script at all.
It was supposed to be an actually choreographed fight scene.
But they went with something. They went with an even better moment because Harrison Ford had the flu.
Yeah, he was suffering from a fever.
He was sick, and if you look closely on his face,
you could definitely tell that man was not
feeling well, and he was just, come on, man, like, let me pop you real quick. I don't want to be doing this fight choreography.
Right.
And that's a little bit of the attitude and the magnetic attitude that Harrison Ford has that everybody knows and loves now. So that's really great. I love those trivia points. I want to now come to our ratings for the movie. If this is your first time on Letter Talked, we do a Letter Talked rating, which is a fun rating that you'll get to see the kind of the format with that. What that looks like here in a moment, and then we'll go over our Letterboxd rating, which is a out of 5-star rating. My Letter Talked rating, to go first, I'm going to go with 13 poisoned monkeys out of 13.5.
Okay.
Low key, one of the best actors in the movie. He kind of double crosses in a crazy way. In a crazy way. That's my. I
don't want to say the evil Nazi monkey deserved to get poisoned by his own owner, but
he was a Nazi sympathizer.
He was a traitor.
So he was a traitor. He also did some.
I think for me, I'm gonna have to go with 6 fertility idols out of 7.
Oh, not perfect.
Not perfect. Could have used more fertility idol.
Okay. I like that. That's the idol that he gets in the beginning of the movie. If y'all didn't know, the golden head that's like that big, and it's the fertility idol. Not everybody knows the name of that one, so that's cool. Letterboxd rating, this to me, it's a 13 out of 13.5 for Poison Monkeys, but it's a 5 out of 5 in my heart. It's a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. You're going to go with the 5 out of 5 too. It's
my number 1 top 4 on Letterboxd.
Right, and this is about as close as you can get to being a perfect movie, a perfect adventure movie, a perfect blockbuster.
I think Mr. Spielberg would have to agree with us.
Yeah, it's his own movie, and it's his favorite of all of his filmography for a reason. And if you want to talk about being accessible for kids, being accessible for adults, being funny, having some intense moments of action, some good choreography, really great cinematography, sound design. I mean, across the board, this is a fantastic film. I'm surprised it didn't almost win more with the Oscars at the time, but it's definitely gone on to be one of, if not the most influential films of all time, and it definitely deserves its flowers, and we want to commemorate it a little bit by saying that. Any last thoughts about Raiders before we start to say goodbye and dip on out of here?
I think everybody should go play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on your Xbox, PC, or PlayStation. That's not an ad.
That's not an ad. It's just a really great game from what I've heard. I haven't played it yet, but it's on my list of things to get to, on my backlog of games and movies and TV shows and all those things to experience for the first time.
It's also better than Crystal Skull.
Ooh. So do you rank that like after Temple of Doom?
Okay. This is going to... the first three.
Yeah.
Tempted to put Great Circle above. And then I'd throw the Tintin movie in there.
Okay.
And then the newer two movies.
The Tintin movie?
Have you not seen Adventures of Tintin?
Are you saying that's an Indiana Jones movie?
It's by Spielberg. Very much feels like an Indiana Jones movie.
So you're talking expanded Indiana Jones universe, Tintin counts.
Yeah, I would. Okay. I would count that.
That's fair. I haven't seen it in full. I've seen part of Tintin. Haven't seen the full thing. I watched a little bit of it, just kind of in passing. It looks really good. It looks fun. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you everybody for joining us on the Letter Talked podcast. Go ahead and check out the House 1055 on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You'll also find my episodes and the House 1055 episodes on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Go follow me on TikTok and Instagram, Andy P. Rob on TikTok and Andy P. Roberts on Instagram. There's a lot of great things going on in the film world. Kris is on Twitter. Do you want to plug your Twitter?
Don't want to plug my Twitter. Okay, but I will plug my Letterboxd with his Kris Rocks.
That's
on
true.
Letterboxd.
You want to follow me on Letterboxd? You can follow me to D_Roo, ROO. So hey, check us out if you're interested. Check us out for some more things on there in your Twitter. You're like, all right, let's stay away from the Twitter. That's funny. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Peace.